And a very pleasant good evening to you. I'm Charles Carter. It's a pleasure to welcome you to Bahamian Artists. I try to, every once in a while, give a story that is sometimes unbelievable to modern Bahamians about the beauty and the exotic nightlife that used to exist in our country 40 and 50 years ago. There was a great age of entertainment in the Bahamas when there were clubs that were open almost 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, where entertainment came from all around the world, and more importantly, Bahamians found their creative voices to be able to create the kind of entertainment that brought people into our country. Entertainment was what people used to come to the Bahamas for. Now they come for sun, sand, and sea. The entertainment still exists, but it's not as prominent as it used to be. And for a country of 350,000 people in the 21st century, it's amazing the number of Bahamian musicians and musicians who have been able to make an impression on the world. But there's been no impression made like the song Funky Nassau, and like the group, The Beginning of the End. It's a great story, and tonight, Ray Munnings, the architect of that story and that journey, will tell it to us. Ray, it's good to see you. You look like Showtime yourself.
Well, Charles, once you put the mic and the lights are on, that's what it is. And I want to thank you for inviting me on your program, and hope we can shed some light on the last 50 years, really.
Well,
my involvement.
It's been a great half century, and but as I said, it's very difficult for people today, in today's Bahamas, to imagine yesterday's Bahamas. And the Cat and Fiddle Club, for example, your dad's club, which was a mecca of international entertainment. What do you remember when you think Cat and Fiddle?
Well, let's take it back one quick step before. Silver Slipper. At the time, I was about 4 years old, and I lived in McCullough Corner with my parents. And so work was just around the corner. I could hear all night as the instruments and the musicians were playing and the old man was singing. And and that's where I got my start singing on stage. But once FM moved from from the Silver Slipper to the Cat and Fiddle, everything changed.
It was a brand new ball game. It was his club. It was a club the way he wanted it.
Exactly.
How was that club? What was that club?
Well, the club, I like to call it the University of the Cat and Fiddle, because that's where I graduated from. It was not just a club, but it was a place where people learned their craft and honed the craft, and it was a place where it was a dual-edged sword. The old man always had entertainment, native entertainment, meaning of a cast of about 25 persons, dancers, singers, and a lot of people got their start there.
And a big orchestra.
And the band, of course. And then he also had at least once every month, an international artist would come in. And again, right in the middle of Nassau, instead of along the waterfront, he would introduce these artists to the Bahamians, so the Bahamians could have enjoyed their entertainment and enjoyed the performances that they would do.
Let me put a geographic link on that. That would be on the corner of Nassau Street and Poinciana Drive, which is now the Bank of the Bahamas.
Right, and of course, COB is across the street from there.
That's right.
But the club itself, like you said, that location, at the time, we didn't have any parking problems. Now you couldn't put a club there because parking would be a big problem. But at the time, you'd have cars lined up from the club almost up to the hill.
Yeah,
and going
past
the other
Meadow
way.
Street.
Yeah,
that's exactly right.
And going
to
down
Oaks Field.
Towards Oaks
That's
Field.
exactly right.
But like I said, and people would come not only for the night performances, but what we'd call matinee dances. And Charles, it was like every time I encounter someone now that's around my age or slightly younger or a little older, that's the first thing they remember, boy, those matinee dances,
Well, Ray, one of the things that people wouldn't really appreciate is the size of the club. First of all, it was an outdoor club.
Yeah.
It was a club that had palm trees growing through it. So it had this exotic kind of thing. But the stage was a high stage, as I remember, a stage that was able to accommodate every type of entertainment, including this 12-piece band that your father had there. But at one time, I even saw the ice follies on that stage. I mean, they were able to put ice on the stage, you know, frozen ice, and they had an ice show. I mean, it was an amazing club, and then it could hold hundreds of people.
Well, you know,
And that was the outside part of the club.
that's right. Well, let's start first at the outside. The seating, I remember the biggest nights that we had there was the night that Sir Sidney and Harry Belafonte came. They
That's
had
right.
2 nights, 2 performances with 2,500 at each sitting. And of course, one of the things that Belafonte insisted on was no liquors to be served when he's on stage. So you had everyone's undivided attention. Now, the regular with tables and chairs, maybe you could accommodate 1,500, but that night, like I say, those 2 nights, they had at least 5,000 people between the 2 nights. Now, there was also an indoor portion, which was called the Ghana Room. And the old man, like I said, did that to commemorate the fact that Ghana had gotten its independence. He was so proud.
That was 1960.
Around that time, I
Yes.
don't know the exact date, but
Yes.
once I got out of St. John's College in 1966, he gave me that club. And I think we touched on this the last time, but we then turned that into the Lion's Den.
Yes.
And of course, that spawned the Young Bahamian Show, which was your brainchild. And
Yeah.
the rest on that is history. But like I said, the club itself wasn't just a nightclub. It was a place where people could learn. Of course, it got involved with politics in the early days. And that Miss Bahamas was held there.
All the Miss Bahamas
early
early
contests,
editions were held right there.
And so it was more than just a nightclub.
It was a place where history was really made in many, many ways on many, many fronts for Bahamian people. And it was just absolutely fantastic. But as a club, it excelled. Not only was there great native entertainment, and native entertainment might be a floor show. Now, nowadays, youngsters wouldn't know what a floor show was, but it was really a show that showed dance. You had, of course, the normal Bahamian acts in that particular show, which would be limbo and fire dance and shake dances and all that sort of thing, with a bevy of gorgeous women. And then, of course, you had you had shows that you only see in Vegas nowadays, you know.
Well, you know, when you talk about the shows like that, like they say, Shirley Hall Bass came in and brought some beautiful ladies out of Chicago,
Bashanettes.
as Bashanettes.
Yes.
And they also had so much entertainment that, I mean, all of the young artists at the time, Fireball Freddie, Little Dudley Capron, Cy Roberts, I mean, these are the singers.
Yes.
And so this is where they got their start. Sabu the Great, Buttercup, Sweet Richard, all those names that were
And
there at the
almost
club.
every other entertainer who went into business, he would come and try and get on the stage and sing a song to get started. Because if you could sing and make it at the Cat and Fiddle, you can make it anywhere in the Bahamas.
Well, that's how Duke Carroll said he got his start.
Yes.
Well, you know, a big break or introduction, because the old man always had at least a 17-piece band there. So to sing with that big band, that was a plus for any young budding artist coming up.
But also, it was a showcase of the best internationally and now legendary performers of yesterday, the black circuit of entertainers who run the gamut from Nat King Cole and Harry Belafonte at the very top to just ordinary stars like James Brown, Joe Tex, Jerry Butler,
Aretha
Roy
Franklin.
Hamilton. I mean, if they existed and if they were any good at all, they came to the Cat and Fiddle.
Well, that was the idea. Like what FM would say to me, or my father would say to me, that he wanted to make sure that the Bahamians had a chance to see these people, because they couldn't travel that much during those early days. And so he would make sure that they were here and that it was affordable. I think it was only like 4 shillings or 10 shillings to see any one of those artists, and which now I think equates to about maybe $1.50 or whatever it was. But you would have people coming there and just, well, as a matter of fact, that's where after a while we got our start.
Well, you got your start, and so did your brothers. Now, the one thing that Freddie Munnings can really be cited for is the number of entertainers that got their start with him, because he was an accomplished musician. He was a policeman first, but he went off and studied formally and became an accomplished musician that allowed him to use his natural talents as a vocalist and a musician, and created a band. And then he gave birth to a number of kids who all seemed to have a particular gene for music and entertainment. All of you, every Munnings I know, could either sing or think they could sing, dance or think they could dance, but all of you can perform. I mean, I don't know a single Munnings that just can't light up when the stage light is turned on.